What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones. We are brought to you by Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clements Bridge Road, and Fresh Roasted Coffee. 20% off your first purchase, BYP20. You'll see that in the show notes. And week 9 is among us already, is a frightful Thursday edition of BYP Halloween, the 31st, 2024. Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us, does a great job as host. Lloyd Vance's Insider Football 1029 FM The Game. Every Monday from 8 to 9, you hear him during the week with me on BYP and The Drive. So week 9 is alive. The Texans and the Jets to start things off. It might be a scary game to kind of watch. And by the way, let me just get this out of the way. Brutal stretch for me as a New York fan. The Giants are horrible. The Knicks might have issues. The Rangers are getting older. And then last night, my Yankees spit the bit up 5-0. Game 5 to the Dodgers in the 5th inning. It can't get any worse. Maybe the Giants get a win. We'll talk about that in a moment, but not a very good week to be a New York fan. So there's that trend continue tonight, my friend, with the Jets and the Texans, and the Jets laying 2.5 at home, and they come in with a 2-6 mark. Texans 6-2. Obviously, no digs for Houston.
This is gonna be a fun game to watch too, because we thought there was a potential playoff battle going into the season, but
Yep.
the way the Jets have played is just awful. They've lost five straight games, and Aaron Rodgers just looking every bit of 41, and their running game's not what it needs to be. Did bring in Devontae Adams. Maybe he starts making a difference. I know last couple weeks have been kind of quiet, and Wilson's been kind of eating there. And the thing is, though, the defense for um, Ulbricht's group has just got to play better because the Texans are a tough team with a lot of firepower. Don't forget Mixon. Don't forget Schultz. Stroud, one of the best young quarterbacks out there. Yes, they won't have Diggs, but Tank Dell is still playing at a high level, and they have Robert Woods off the bench. So going to be a fun game to watch. Always beware the home dog, but I expect the Texans to win this one.
Yeah, listen, I'm looking at the Texans right now. Aside from two games, the win against the Bears second week when they scored 19 and then lost to Minnesota where they only scored 7. They're scoring 22 plus. I mean, you look at some of these games, 26, 23, 41, 25. The Jets in that offense, it's inept and anemic. They're going to have to score at least 25, 26 points to win this game. I'm not seeing it. I like the Texans outright tonight, and I'm not going to touch the total. I think Thursday night games, sometimes the quality of players a little I guess people would say you lean towards the under 42.5. I cannot go that route. All right, let's go through some of these marquee games. I don't want to spend too much time on, say, the Dallas and the Falcons because I think Dallas is shot, but the Falcons at 5-3, they're laying 3 at home. The total is 51.5. Dallas is plus 150. Dallas has had a bunch of problems this season. We know that the defense, the laps, the secondary, they cannot stop a nosebleed. They got humbled by Detroit and then they lost to San Francisco in a game that wasn't even relatively close. Obviously, the score told you something different, 30-24. But I just think right now the Cowboys are in shambles.
Yeah, this is a game at first when I first looked at it. I said, okay, maybe the Cowboys kind of get right, and Atlanta's defense is, they have not stopped a lot of people, and they've been a lot of shootouts, but the Cowboys are not going to have Micah Parsons. They have probably the worst rushing attack in National Football League. Dak Prescott not living up to expectations. Other than CeeDee Lamb, they really don't have anybody that's really stepping up in terms of the offensive side of the football. And then defensively, we know their struggles without Parsons and Diggs. His comments showed his frustration. So I think Atlanta will win this one, Q. I'm kind of back off my early pick that I did on my show. I just think Atlanta has a lot of firepower. Kirk Cousins playing very well in the regular season, and Pitts has really kind of broken out. So I'm going to go with Atlanta as the home team here.
There are some games this weekend where you look at them and record wise, I mean, you got some bad matchups, right? New England, the Titans, 2-6, 1-6, the Saints, the Panthers, 2-6, 1-7. But then conversely, you turn around, you look at Denver and you look at Baltimore. Both these squads are 5-3. And I think Baltimore, listen, we know sometimes you stub your toe, it happens against Cleveland. Denver at 5-3. Are they the biggest surprise in your estimation? Baltimore's laying, it looks like they're laying 9.5 in this one.
It's crazy because Baltimore's calling card has always been their defense, but they've allowed the most deep passes and yards in the National Football League. So the thing is that they're going to have to do a good job in terms of getting Bo Nix off that spot. And is a young man ready for prime time? I'm just not sure. I think this is going to be a get right situation for him. Don't forget, they probably should have won last week. Kyle Hamilton dropped that pass. That would have been the game sealing interception. So I think Baltimore is going to be angry. And Bo Nix, it's a learning experience for him.
Eagles 7.5. That'll probably close at 8-8 plus against a bad Jacksonville squad, 2-6. Doug Peterson returns to Philly where they won a Super Bowl. The total is 46.5. Jacksonville sitting at plus 280. This is again, should be easy pickings for the Eagles if they just play mistake-free football. We saw what Hurts was able to do. I think they're going to have an opportunity to run all over Jacksonville. I like the Eagles by double digits or more in this one.
You would think so. And the Eagles are on that hot streak. Jalen Hurts has not had any turnovers in the last three games, all wins for the Philadelphia Eagles. And they want to, Doug Peterson, that's their guy from back in the day when they won a Super Bowl in 2017. But they're going to stick it to Doug Peterson. And I think that he is going to be the Eagles receivers, you know, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They're coming along. I think they both could have 100 yards in this game. Jacksonville bottom five in about five passing categories as a defense. So I think that Dylan Hurst is going to feast. And let's not forget, Saquon Barkley,
Yep.
he's had quiet 100-yard games, which is very good for this team. And then let's not forget, they traded away one of their best offensive linemen in Cam Robinson this week. I think the Eagles defense will continue to get home. The defense is playing a lot better with those two first-round rookies that they have.
Detroit 6-1, Green Bay 5-2. Detroit laying 2.5. You can make the case that the Lions are the best team in the NFC, let alone the NFL. This will be a 425 window. Green Bay a plus 125. As I mentioned, the total 48 shade to the over. It should close around 49. I think this will be a high scoring game. Um, Tough spot for the Lions, though. You got to go on the road, right? I mean, we know they're a very good team, but we know when they play in that indoors on that field turf, I mean, they're just all over the place. I think this is a game where the Packers will have to put up at least 28 points.
This one's going to be interesting, Q, because we saw Detroit go to Lambeau and win there for the first time in a lot of years last year, showing that they're not afraid. Dan Campbell beating his chest. And the key thing, obviously, is Jordan Love. Is he going to play for Green Bay? I talked to some guys, and he did practice today. He's feeling kind of confident that he will play in this game. But I do tend to agree with you that this is a Lions spot here. They're just playing like one of the best teams in the National Football League, looking like a true contender. They can beat you a variety of ways, passing the ball, running the football, and then their defense is kind of working through the Hutchinson situation. So I think the Lions will win, and I do agree with you. Love plays. This will be a high scoring game.
The Colts aside, we're going to sit Anthony Richardson. It sounds like he's going to be benched for the rest of the season. They go to Joe Flacco. I know the argument has been made, you're giving up on young players. Maybe it's not these young players that are being benched. Maybe it's the way they're not being coached up. I don't think you give up on the young man just yet. I actually thought he was poised. I think I said it in August to you. I thought he was poised to have a big time season, 3,500 yards, 20 plus touchdowns, another 6 or 7 rushing touchdowns, 400 yards plus with his legs. That hasn't been the case. They are getting 5 on the road. They're right in the mix in the AFC South. Minnesota's going to kind of calm the waters a little bit, right? They've been stumbling over the last several weeks. They're 5-2. So this will be in Minnesota indoors, Sunday night football. Flacco at least gives him a shot to throw the ball down the field. But if I'm Minnesota, I'm the more desperate team right here, even though Indianapolis has made a quarterback change because Minnesota, they're starting to leak a little bit of oil, right? They had that great start. Now all of a sudden you blink and all right, it hasn't been as easy the last several weeks, right? I mean, tough loss to Detroit and then an even tougher loss to the Rams.
Yes, it's a tough spot for them, Minnesota. They're at home and they're riding a two-game losing streak, and they got to find a way to get a win, Q. Sam Darnold's starting to look like his old self a little bit, and they do have Justin Jefferson, the most dynamic receiver in the game, but they got to find ways to get him the football. Aaron Jones as well, and defensively, as you pointed out, they had some problems stopping opposing teams' receivers. So Joe Flacco, as old as he is, he's 40 some years old.
Mhm.
He's able to get that football out of his hands very quickly, and they do have weapons and Downs and Pittman and some of the other guys there, Taylor as well, running the football. So it's going to be an interesting game, but I think Minnesota wins it, but it's going to be close. Minnesota's a 5-point favorite and maybe a field goal game.
Giants 2-6. We know they're struggling mightily. Again, you had some opportunities against Pittsburgh on Monday night. They couldn't deliver. They take on Washington coming off that absolute miracle against Chicago. My Commanders right now 6-2 on top of the NFC East, and Washington on the road as a favorite, laying 4. And typically these two teams play relatively close, tight, highly contested games. The Giants have owned Washington of late. Obviously, that wasn't the case early on in the season. If the Giants have a kicker, maybe they win that game. Neighbors with the fourth down drop on the road in Landover. I just don't. I don't like the Giants in this spot. The total is 44. I think Washington's going to put up 30 plus. I don't think the Giants have the firepower, especially if Tracy, the running back, can't go. I just Washington to me by at least 13.
Gonna be an interesting one because it's a divisional battle. But as you were kind of talking about, Washington's one of the hottest teams in the National Football League. Jaden Daniels, and that just showed you they have good karma at this point. That last week pulling that rabbit out of their hat, and I think the Giants are just a downtrodden team at this point in the season. Daniel Jones has not played well. I don't think he's thrown a touchdown pass in MetLife Stadium this season. So, I expect uh, Payne and that defensive line of the Commanders to get after Daniel Jones and for the Commanders to win this one big. As long as Daniels is healthy with that rib injury, I think they're going to put up some big numbers in this one.
All right, two more to round it out. Again, a Thursday edition of Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quinones here. Lloyd Vance, kind enough to join us. Give him a follow on social media platforms at Lloyd Vance. Also, host of Lloyd Vance's Insider Football every Monday, 8 to 9 on Sports Radio 1029 FM. The game. The Rams, again, older veteran team. Are we going to start trading off guys? All of a sudden, you win a couple games, not so fast. Seattle's come back down to earth after their real nice start at 3-0. They've dropped one. I think they're 1-4. 1-5, if you will. No, 1-4 over their last 5. So they've kind of struggled of late. The Rams on the road in a hostile environment, laying a point and a half too, which kind of tells me, are we over evaluating the Rams here and maybe underplaying Seattle at home? I don't know. This is my look but don't touch game.
What's interesting is that this division, you could throw these teams in a bag, and
Yeah.
any one of them could beat each other, and it's so closely top to bottom ranked right now. And the Rams coming in there at 3-4, they're picked it up the last couple weeks. Yeah, they've kind of moved off the trade talk because you've got Cooper Kupp now, you've got Puka Nacua, and you're seeing that Stafford's playing at that high level once again. This is going to be a good matchup. The Seahawks defense is kind of beat up in the secondary, and we'll see how this kind of spins out. But I think with Kupp and Nacua playing, that they're going to get right, and Geno Smith's going to make some mistakes. So I'll go with the Rams in a very close win.
And then finally, to close it out, another team that's struggling, Tampa Bay, had that great start, 3-0. All of a sudden, they've dropped. They're 1-4 in their last 5. They're now 500. The Chiefs 7-0, flawed Chiefs team, but still, this is a pretty high line, 8.5 at home. And we know one thing about Tampa Bay: if you get the good Baker Mayfield, you're going to be able to move the football a little bit. Listen, I know the Chiefs are 7-0. They're not world beaters. We know that. But again, as I mentioned, Tampa Bay has dropped 4 out of their last 6, 3 of 5. They just gave up 31, 41 respectively, 36 in a loss to Atlanta in overtime. This smells as though Kansas City gets right offensively and they've got some opportunities to throw it down the field and maybe put up 25 plus points. Man, I just think that is a high line. I'm actually leaning towards the Bucks to keep it relatively close. Maybe loses one by 7, but not 9.
Yeah, when I look at this one, Q, I think that the Chiefs definitely went on the money line. Obviously, in Arrowhead, it's such
Mm.
a tough place to play. But yeah, you're right. That 8.5 points, I probably would take that because the Chiefs just are not dominating opponents. Like they're getting wins with that championship DNA, finding ways to win games. But 8.5 is a lot to cover. I think they're still working D Hop into the scheme offensively. Kareem Hunt doing a nice job, but Patrick Mahomes is not himself. Throwing more interceptions than touchdowns, and he's finally getting Kelsey going, and we'll see how that plays out. And the Bucs, they're very beat up as well in terms of Mike Evans, and they lost Godwin, as we know, a couple weeks ago. So I think Kansas City win this one, but that's a big number to cover.
Yeah, I would agree. Week 9, week 10, we really start to separate these teams. We know which teams are, just kind of like, I don't know. I don't like to say going by the wayside, but maybe it's a situation where um, we're starting to see, if you start to play these in-game totals, the first half, some of these teams that are going to make business decisions, look at these in-game second half lines here and there because some of them are going to quit, right? We just know that some of these teams are that bad. Jacksonville, Carolina, the Giants, the Jets. It's something to keep an eye out for over the next several weeks. But again, week 9 is among us. We'll recap everything as well on Monday's edition of the Drive. But I always appreciate Lloyd jumping on board. And of course, we are powered by our good friends over at Play It Again Sports and fresh roasted coffee, 20% off your first purchase, BYP20. All right, my friend. I guess trick or treat. And I don't know, I remember back in the day, you used to get like Staples and pencils, and then you get like Malamar bars. Those are really crappy candy. So hopefully for the kiddies out there, you got, the Reese's, you got the Kit Kats, you got some good stuff.
I got Snickers and all that stuff ready for them, and hopefully they'll be happy, and hopefully some of these teams will keep fighting. We saw, New England kind of step up last week, and Cleveland too. So maybe some of these teams aren't ready to quit just yet, Q.
Yeah, agree 100%. So we'll see how it plays out. All right, my friend, enjoy the games over this weekend. We'll talk next week.
All right, Q.